Welcome friends, welcome back to the kitchen, welcome back to Sunday morning and the Old Cookbook Show. We're going to do another recipe out of the VIKO, or the new VIKO Cookbook. This is 1936, put out by VIKO Manufacturing. They manufactured aluminum cookware and bakeware. Really good cookbook. We're going to do something today called Gumdrop Bars. Now, I have a confession to make. I decided on this recipe, went out and bought the gumdrops. Went to the bulk barn and bought a bag of gumdrops, and I thought, okay, well, you know what? I'll film this recipe later in the week. I've got a whole bunch of recipes that I want to do this week. Sometime later in the week, I'll get to it. I have a real problem with gumdrops. I have absolutely no self-control when there's baking, specifically these baking gumdrops. You could put jujubes in the house and I wouldn't touch them. But these hard, not really sweet, not great textured baking gumdrops, I can't help myself. So I realized I had to make the recipe earlier in the week than later because there just weren't going to be any left. Now, the recipe tells me to beat the eggs thoroughly with the VIKO Aluminum Instant Whip Beater. Stand mixer is going to have to do, and I think it did a pretty good job. So now I have to put in light brown sugar and a tablespoon of cold water. A tablespoon of cold water is something, whenever I see such small amounts of water or milk in a recipe like this, I really question the reason behind it. Okay. Keep whipping. Okay, so the recipe asks for baking gumdrops, baking gums, and I've got some here. Asks for them shredded, which is difficult because they're hard. So I put these in the freezer and then I ran them through the food processor, and the food processor did almost nothing to shred them. It also says assorted flavors, omit the licorice. Every recipe that I've ever seen that uses baking gums says exactly the same thing, omit the licorice. Which allows me to go and buy them and then pick the licorice ones out and eat them because, you know, I really like licorice. I love licorice flavor. I understand why you don't want to put them in something like this. The color leaches out and they have a completely different flavor profile from the rest of these. The rest of these are based on citrus or cherry, and the flavors all sort of go together. The licorice ones stand out, and apparently most recipe writers don't want that. So I've got those. I'm supposed to put some pecans in, so I'm going to put those in with the gumdrops. And then this hurts my very soul. Some flour. And then coat them with a bit of that flour. This really does, I mean, I have tested this myth over and over and over again. There are so many other factors into why some fruit drops to the bottom in a cake or a preparation like this. And for the most part, flouring your fruit doesn't stop it. I've tested it. There's so many other factors at play as to why it happens. And even when you do flour it in certain cakes, it still drops to the bottom. There's more going on. Anyway, we'll deal with that later. I've got cake flour, specifically calls for cake flour. And to that, I'm going to add cinnamon and salt. And we'll just stir that in. And now we mix the flour into the egg and sugar mixture. There's no leavening in these bars. No leavening whatsoever. So it's going to have a pretty interesting texture. And I have a feeling that fairly shortly, I'm going to have to take the whisk out and move to the spatula to get the rest of this flour into the mixture. Okay, in go the gumdrops and the pecans. So this is an advertising cookbook. 1936 advertising cookbook for VIKO Aluminum Cookware and Bakeware. And there's no, unlike 1936, all of the other cookbooks put out by companies that are pushing their products, there's no hard sell in this one. They call out the products in each recipe for sure. They tell you, to use a VIKO aluminum, Dutch oven, or in this case, a VIKO aluminum jelly roll pan. But there's no sloganeering on every other page or advertising on every other page telling you how great their product is and that the competitor's product is garbage. It's all very subtle. Here's a bunch of great recipes. By the way, you could use our products to make it. Last couple of pages, there is almost sort of a catalog, kinda, but not really, in that it calls out some products, but not all of the products. So the VIKO aluminum jelly roll pan does not appear in the back section. They don't tell me what size the jelly roll pan is, but I do know from other research that they made at least 2 sizes of jelly roll pan. And I've run into this with another recipe where it called out the VIKO biscuit and cake pan in 2 popular sizes, apparently. The recipe didn't tell me which of the 2 popular sizes I was supposed to use. So I've got 2 pans that qualify as jelly roll pans. And I think it's this larger one. I think I'm going to use the larger one. As always, we're going to see what happens. And so I'll just smooth this out into the corners of the pan. It tells me to bake it in a moderate oven, and then in parentheses, 325. Moderate oven, depending on which cookbook you look in, could be anywhere from 300 to 375. In this cookbook, moderate oven, they'll call it out 325, 350, 375. It's that range. If you see moderate oven and there's no temperature given, 350 is always pretty safe. But they want the low end of moderate for this bake. So in we go. It says 30 minutes. It's got a really...
Hey, Glenn, that looks
Hey, Jules.
really chewy. Hey,
Yes.
friends.
It's going to have a very chewy texture. It has, and it's got this...
Does it have a lot of brown sugar in it?
Yes.
Often, I equate brown sugary things as super chewy.
And it's got that wild, crispy, crusty layer on the top that people go out of their minds for trying to get on brownies. There it is, Gumdrop Bar. Now...
There's gumdrops in here?
Yes. So I'm a little bit worried. Earlier, I talked about how, they always ask you to take the licorice ones out because the flavor doesn't match and the color runs. So all of the gumdrops are citrus, like lemon, lime, orange, and cherry.
Oh, that's a quirky collection. Yeah.
But they add cinnamon. I don't think cinnamon goes with citrus.
Okay, I feel
So
like you're
that's-
giving me a warning.
Yes. So the dominant spice flavor is going to be cinnamon with citrus gumdrops. Yeah.
Gumdrops are chewy. When you get the gumdrop, like I got a lemony one, and it was definitely lemony. But before I got it, it was definitely cinnamony. It's kind of it's like a bit of a surprise.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the cinnamon with the gumdrops. I'd probably leave the cinnamon out and put in lemon or orange extract as the flavor to the cake.
But then do the gumdrops have enough flavor to them that you don't need?
Yes. Yeah. I think
That's the other question,
Well,
right?
I mean, I eat gumdrops by the handful.
Yes, I noticed there's some extras. Do you have a plan? Is there another recipe for those, Glenn? No.
No, I have a problem. I'm glad.
I'm glad that you were made
I have a problem.
jujubes.
So I like this. I like the starting point of this. Not a fan of the cinnamon.
It's interesting because the gumdrop cake that I really like has a pineapple
base. Yes.
base to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So another fruit flavoring instead of cinnamon, I think, would be great starting point.
You go with what you have.
Great texture. And you might like it with cinnamon. I don't want to sway you on that.
Fair enough, because it's not awful.
No, not at all. I'm still going to finish it, and I'll probably, make a good
Slowly
start
eat
on the rest of it. So, Gumdrop Bars. Thanks for stopping by. See you again soon.
Yeah, mine's gone, so.